Hello, everyone, and welcome to WTFFG, where we discuss the games of Fantasy Flight Games. I'm Caleb.
I'm RJ.
I'm Crimson.
And today we got some interesting discussions. We had the World Championships for a Game of Thrones, as well as, I believe, all of the other ones. Did we have L5R Worlds this past week as well?
Yeah, I think World Championships happened, and everybody, all the games were represented in Minnesota at FFG headquarters.
Almost
Nice.
all the games. I believe they don't do Star Wars Destiny. I think the Star Wars games are done on a different world. I think they're done with X-Wing, Armada, the LCG, and the Destiny. Or done separately.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember FFG specifically giving Star Wars their own special events off to the side and keeping the other LCGs on their own schedule. We have two different tracks. That's what it was. Yes, you are correct.
Which makes sense because the Star Wars is generally a larger community, and you really don't want that kind of influence in with the rest of these. I mean, it would just be too crowded there. I don't think they're building space.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely the argument and the complaint that I've heard from many different individuals who've gone to FFG Worlds where everything is all together is space. There's no space for everybody, and you're on top of each other and all of that jazz. I personally have not been to FFG Worlds, so I have not experienced this firsthand, so I don't know. I just have to listen to what everybody else tells me.
It's kind of like the basement at Wizards of the Coast headquarters during their Tempest pre-release. It was crowded, and it was in a basement. Now, it was a nice basement. I mean, it was a big conference room in the basement, but it was still the basement, and it was still crowded as fuck.
Yeah.
And that was in, 97, 98?
98, I think. God, that's insane. It's been a minute since Tempest came out, huh?
I miss it so much.
Yeah, I didn't even play in that block, and I miss it. Like, I just see the cards pop up every so often. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That must have been really fun to play when it was legal.
It was.
But, yeah, I have only heard stories from going to Worlds, and I've heard it's not as fun as Gen Con, because it's literally you're going to Worlds to play in a tournament and then go home. Like, it's not as much of a convention like the North American Championships were.
Yeah, I'll next time I see Sparks, he's another podcaster. They do an L5R podcast called Troll 5R. I'll ask him, because I know he was there, what the space was like.
Definitely. That'd be good to know.
Or you could ask Will. I heard he was there too.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I believe he was at IO Worlds, which is the other.
Oh, that's right, IO Worlds.
Yep. Which I heard was a lot more fun than Worlds.
That's what I heard too.
Mainly because, I don't know, I would say the French national champion probably would have been fucking invited.
Yeah, about that. That's that's been a topic of discussion, which actually we're going to discuss a little bit of that right now, if that's okay for that. Enough of a segue for anything.
Yeah. Let's roll right down the list.
Okay.
I mean, unless you need the segue rolling in the background, I can put the image up. But yeah,
we're good. We're good. So essentially, Spark Notes. The French national champion was unable to make the trip to FFG Worlds because of scheduling conflicts. Okay, naturally that happens. Life happens. So he politely asked, well, hey, can the runner-up go? And the Asmodee France division said, yes, that's okay. Why don't you go ahead and do that? And then FFG comes around, and this is FFG Organized Play, comes around and actually overturns that. And that caused a huge stink. Literally, the AGOT 2.0 page went ballistic when this gentleman shared this story, and yeah, it sucked. Yeah.
Isn't that the whole definition of a fucking runner-up? Like,
yeah, literally.
Like, seriously, that's what a understudy, a second, a second place or a runner-up. That's their job, is to fulfill that role if the main person can't go. They may not be the champion, but they're the second best person. It's like, blow me.
And that's actually a great way to put it, that, the runner-up is, obviously they got second place, which means that they were not the champion, but the idea behind that is that if the champion cannot do the thing, or does not qualify for it, or for whatever reason cannot make that appointment or event or whatever, that it then goes down the ladder. It goes to the runner-up. If that person can't make it, then the next person. That instance, that prize of being able to go to Worlds, should just work its way down the ladder until somebody can go.
Well, it's a good thing the tournament wasn't held in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Yemen, any of those, because none of them would have been allowed to go. My bad.
Yep, that just happened. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, so I guess to put some of this in context, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of what the actual post was. The organizers, and I'm going to leave names out of this, so I'm just reading verbatim from what the post was a while ago. The organizers asked the finalist if he would step up, the runner-up, to which he obviously said yes. Asmodee France and Asmodee Europe agreed to the change. FFG, though, chose to say no and take back the representative seat for the French community. Their argument being, and I quote, "It's only for the champion," end quote. I wouldn't go into the details of how fallacious this reason is, and yeah. So some of his bottom line arguments here, can't wait for Asmodee to get their hands on organized play. I'm done with FFG. And again, this is all quote. FFG preferred to screw up an active meta to save $2,000 budgeted that they had allocated for it. And already known, please remember that we're dealing with FFG organized play. So yeah, that's that. So as we've talked about the past couple weeks, it really seems like FFG organized play department is kind of the common problem child here.
That it's a garbage fire? Yes, it is. As soon as I read that quote from him, I go, yeah. Oh my God, I would love to see what Asmodee can do with organized play, because FFG has dropped the fucking ball, stomped it, shot it, and stabbed it.
Hey, FFG organized play, if you need a new person, just email me and I'll send you my resume.
Yeah, you've got 3 people right here. And just ready to go. We can fix all your shit.
And I think all of us have a laundry list of other folks who would also be willing to step up to the plate. But yeah.
Yeah, you want a whole new division? We can provide that.
So, now that is where that I had left the post a long time ago. And when I went back to revisit it, there was an edit the day after that I was actually quite happy to find, and I did find this just a couple days ago, so I'm going to read a portion of this also. So, here we go. Asmodee France has chosen to support the French representative and fund the ticket to Worlds. I can't express how good and relieved this makes me feel. I would really like to thank and congratulate Asmodee for their support of the organized play in France. I'm really looking forward to the events that they will organize and can't wait to support these as much as I can. It feels really good to see that our game and passion backed by this type of initiative from an important stakeholder. The French community had started crowdfunding the ticket on its side before this information got to us, which was awesome to hear them doing, by the way. We are still debating on how to use the money that we gathered, refund, invested in prize support for further community events, blah, blah, blah. So that is the update that we got from Asmodee France and this gentleman on the AGOT 2.0 page afterwards. So Asmodee France are the ones who made it official and decided to fund it. So mad props to them for picking up the drop ball.
Yeah, I have to give just insane props for that, because they didn't have to do that. They could have just gone with the ruling that FFG Organized Play had given, which was fuck them, basically. And the fact that Asmodee France is like, no, we actually said it was okay, and we're going to make it okay. So while they did not, go and fight FFG Organized Play over it, which would have just been a shit show, and I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm glad they didn't implode on themselves. I'm glad that Asmodee France stepped up and said, no, we're going to make this right, because he should get to go. And if they're going to try to take away the seat from them, basically, if nobody was able to go, that's bullshit. And I'm glad that one of the companies that is involved in Thrones or in FFG's games is actually doing something.
And the other thing is, like, I know we keep saying, like, Asmodee France. The thing is, Asmodee is a French company. Their headquarters is France.
Yes.
So that is the majority of the company, which does own FFG North America. It's not like, Wizards France or Wizards European Division overruling something coming from Wizards North America, which would be the headquarters North America. This is literally this is like Viacom or what was the company that owned Blizzard and Activision? It'd be like if Blizzard said no to this, but Viacom Digital was like, fuck you. No, you're doing this. We own you.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that FFG would be like, no. It's like, no.
And I really feel like this is just, I don't know, we've been talking about FFG Organized Play for a couple of months, I think now. And I don't know, I'm just not feeling good about it, like, at all. Like, it's just getting worse. I almost feel like something needs to change. I hope that Asmodee gets a hold of Organized Play, just like he had said in the post. But I don't know. It's really rubbing me the wrong way that they are not intentionally. They're not intentionally fucking over their players, but they're also not trying at all. They're like, nope, this one little thing didn't line up, so nah, fuck them. Or we're going to change schedules or start times, and then not tell everybody, and then disqualify people. Like, your players and customers are your livelihood. Stop fucking them over. And since this is specifically FFG Organized Play, FFG needs to get in there and start kicking some dicks.
Yeah, no joke.
Shit.
It's funny you should mention that, because I saw a few people who had shirts at FFG Worlds that, in big bold letters on the front, "What time is Top Cut?" Oh man, that was hilarious.
And the IO Worlds shirts that they had made for that said the same thing. It said, "What time is Top Cup?" and then Top Cut, and on the back it said, "Not getting laid." At IO Worlds, and it's spelled as Matthew Lade, the guy who got disqualified. at the North American Championships.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, it was priceless.
Yeah.
But holy shit, guys, like what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. And this is really weird because when we started doing this segment of WTFFG many months ago, it was like, hey, we really enjoy all of these different fantasy flight games, and we're coming into Store Championship, into Nationals, and then eventually into Worlds. And then it just seems like it's been on a downhill slope ever since. And I never really wanted to kind of have this turn into a rant fest, but in all honesty, with the performance that FFG Organized Play has been doing with this track record in the past couple months, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, that's it. And to clarify for the listeners, the name of the podcast, What the Fantasy Flight Games, was an actual joke. We were all really happy with where the games were at the time that we came up with this. And we even said, we don't want this to become a rant fest. We just want to talk about the games that we're playing and enjoying and our experiences and everything. It was a joke. It was a play on words, and it literally has become What the Fantasy Flight Games. Like, it is, there actually needs to be another F in there. Because it is, none of us know what happened, but it feels like it just kind of happened overnight and just in a steady decline. The dumpster fire that is organized play. I don't know if they got new people in there. I don't know if they just changed their attitudes, if they're just sick of it and they're passing their shit on to other people. But it needs to stop. Like, I had to take a break from Thrones just because of drama reasons, meta reasons, and just kind of wanted to take a step back. But with all of this organized play bullshit happening in all these games, I would like to play Thrones again, but I'm also feeling discouraged because I don't want to dive into more of this bullshit. I don't want to be on the front line of this organized play debacle that keeps getting worse. Same with L5R. I would not mind playing L5R despite all of my problems with that game. I think it's still a cool game. But again, it's done by organized play. So the more games that I play where organized play is involved, I really don't feel the incentive. I don't feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to go play in this tournament. Maybe I'll win a regional or whatever and get into, the North American Championships or Nationals or whatever. I don't care. I really don't. I don't want to have to deal with that extra crap. That actually is more stressful than playing in a tournament.
Yeah, and then on top of that, something that I just remembered, there were a lot of individuals at Gen Con who I think it was in the Joust, in the top 16 or top 32 or whatever the cut was. FFG promised them some extra prize support, but they didn't have it on hand. Well, a lot of those individuals that could make it to Worlds were able to pick them up at Worlds. So still a huge lag in, we have prize support for this event, Gen Con, but we actually don't have it. There was a delay or something happened, and they couldn't get it until later, and that later happens to be Worlds. More than...
Well, and what about the people who couldn't get to Worlds?
Exactly. How did that get to those people? So, yeah, I don't know.
Did they ship it? I mean, yeah, like that's... And also, why would you go to a convention or an event or whatever like that where you're putting on a huge tournament like the North American Championships and go, hey guys, we actually have a bunch more prize support for you, but you know what? I left it in my other pants. Like, what? You had one fucking job. Pack the shit. Like, if you thought of it like, oh, hey, you know what would have been really cool is back at the fucking warehouse in such and such place, we probably should have grabbed those other things because that would have been great to pass out for top 16. Don't say it. Don't say we have more prize support for you, but we don't have it. Just fucking send it to them. Be like, hey guys, here's a special gift basket of whatever. Your hopes and dreams dashed by organized play. But it just seems like they have either no idea what they're doing or they just don't care. I don't know. How do you guys feel about this?
It definitely doesn't give me a warm fuzzy about going to any sort of organized play event. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The amount of logistical debacles on the back end is enough to give me pause. And I'm usually pretty level-headed, but there's been enough debacles, enough chances that have been ruined where it's like I have little to zero faith left in the current state of organized play.
Yeah, and another thing with organized play is that we've really had a problem with is the melee restricted list of them saying, hey, we're going to listen to you guys, and then we're also going to butcher the fucking list that you guys play tested for us for free. So it's just
I agree with RJ though. I've lost faith. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, pretty much the only game I play right now is L5R, and that one's actually doing pretty good with their organized play. It's very unique organized play versus the other ones because of the Hanamotos and just the way tournaments influence the actual normal of the game. But it's still, when are they going to stop caring for L5R? And when that happens, we're going to see the same stuff we're seeing in Netrunner and Thrones.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what I get to look forward to? Or are they going to clean house and get people with passion back?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I have seen this happen now once to Android Netrunner, and as our previous listeners will know, I no longer play that game. And I would love to continue playing that game because the flavor and the design behind it was so cool and innovative, but it just came to a screeching halt and kind of just fell on its face. There is some game design mechanics that was the cause of that personally for me, but also, the organized play and the tournament structure also had a big to do with that. So I've seen it happen once, and I'm very wary with Game of Thrones, because I definitely see something like that happening. I don't want to say in the near future, but it's probably going to happen sooner than I'm anticipating. And then, L5R is just so new. Who knows what's going to happen? Because right now it's their baby, it's their pet project, it's their love child. So, yep, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I actually completely understand what you guys are saying because I played Thrones in first edition LCG, not the CCG way back in the day. But, it got to the point, again, we're not going to go into the details of like why they had to do second edition because everybody really knows. But when they don't say, you know what, guys, we're really thinking about doing this, it was out of nowhere. They're just like, you know what, we're just fucking scrapping it, but we're still going to release this last cycle so you guys can buy into a game and at, $15 price points for chapter packs, and then you're going to be able to sell them for $3 when you sell your collection because the game's dead. And Netrunner is going through their first cycle of
rotation.
Rotation, yes. Oh my god, I've been looking at way too much Magic shit, talking about cycles and stuff. Anyway, so they're going through their first rotation, and it's been handled again in an odd way. And obviously, we here at Mediocre Gamers will look at what they're doing and go, you know what? I feel like they're doing something different, and it's not necessarily what they said they were going to do, but maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Let's take a look. And maybe when Thrones goes to their rotation, that they will have learned from the Netrunner one and do something a little different and improve upon that. And in theory, that's a great mindset to have. But with all the things that are happening with FFG right now, specifically organized play, and them kind of like supporting and also not supporting things and them prioritizing games. Look, I get it. L5R is big and fancy and new, and that's great. And I'm glad that people are liking the game. But when you go, yeah, we really don't give a shit about Thrones anymore because L5R. It's like that should be two completely different teams. You shouldn't be sacrificing one to raise another one up, because I play Thrones, Crimson plays L5R. He also dabbles in Thrones, and I have dabbled in L5R, but Thrones is the game that I primarily played, and L5R is his game. You don't need to stop supporting games that already have a fan base because the new shiny one has a bigger fan base or it's more popular right now. Because, again, like Crimson was saying, when is it going to not be the popular one? When is L5R going to take the hit? If Netrunner 2nd edition comes out and it becomes really popular, does L5R take a backseat and get fucked over?
Yeah, there is an important distinction that I would also like to point out, and that we kind of have two separate arguments, I think, going on here, where we're talking about FFG as in the designing the product and games and stuff, and then organized play. So
to an extent, yes. But there is a little bit of bleed over in the fact of that while it does work in both directions, because if one of them is not being supported by organized play, the numbers are going to drop.
Right.
Like when those numbers drop, that means that the FFG company that is producing the game is going to look at that and go, you know what? It's not actually that much, or it's not as popular as it used to be. Well, L5R has a lot more people buying into it and playing it and showing up for tournaments. So we're going to put our resources into that organized play. We're going to put our resources into putting out more content, better content into that one. So while they are two separate things, FFG and FFG organized play, when it comes to a game's popularity and support, they do walk hand in hand.
Yes, because in the end, FFG is a business, and any business's goal is to make a profit. But and that comes twofold: making a good product, and then getting in the gaming sense, having a good organized play. When both of those are not succinct or not together, or one is dropping the ball and the other one isn't, then that's where you have your player base, like us at Mediocre Gamers, that lose faith in the product and the program. And when that happens, that's where sales drop. And you get people selling their collection, getting out of the game. That's no longer profit that is being generated for the company. So I would agree, they do walk hand in hand.
I also agree. And, I know we don't talk about this game a lot on this particular podcast, but FFG does have another card game out there that doesn't do the LCG model, and that is Star Wars Destiny. And just saying that name makes me really want to log off this podcast right now. Okay, focus.
Stay with us, Andrew.
Yes, I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2.
You're talking about Star Wars Destiny, not Destiny 2.
Star Wars Destiny.
It's a far inferior game to Destiny 2.
It is still a fun game. It's just it's unattainable cash-wise for a casual player.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's there's people who have the disposable income to play it, and more power to them. I hope they have a lot of fun. I just can't afford to keep up with it. It's way too expensive. But that's because they don't use the LCG model. They use the Magic the Gathering collectible card game model. And their organized play is ran by a completely different division of organized play. And it goes phenomenal. It's ran by the same guys who do the X-Wing and Armada. And I mean, they always have price support. It's always top notch over there. And on top of that, they just released their new cycle ruling, and thank God they're just going to copy Magic the Gathering. They're going to have blocks, and a block will be 3 sets. When there'll be block 1, then block 2, and then when the first set of block 3 comes out, block 1 will drop off, just like magic. Holy hell, how hard was that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it keeps the card pool limited to an extent. They did talk about having other formats like Legacy and Vintage. So you will have like the modern, the last 4 blocks, and then you will have, all the cards, free for all the cards. They also talked about just doing block tournaments where it'd only be 1 block, and that would be a format too. So, block format. I really wish the LCG, OP would really take a look at the other side and go, man, they're doing a great job. Let's understand what they're doing and maybe focus a little bit more on some of these other games. Because, I mean, honestly, if someone wants to buy my Thrones cards, they easy sell right now. Because I just don't play it. I don't have like a little casual base. Like if I lived in Springfield with you guys, I would keep them because I could play with you guys whenever, but I don't. So it would be tournaments, and I'm just not interested in playing Thrones tournaments.
Yeah, I totally get it. And again, if you're going to go play in a tournament, you would be playing an L5R tournament, and that's totally fine and great. But you don't have the same passion for Thrones that we have had, and we don't have the same passion for L5R that you have. But so that's where that skews. If we all lived in the same town, I feel like we would both be playing we would all be playing those games together. But I will say that when rotation gets close for Thrones, there is a more than solid chance that I'm gonna just sell off my collection and get out, because the game is going in a weird direction, and with organized play being the dumpster fire that it is right now, if it does not get better, if we do not see the power creep level come down a bit for Thrones, I don't want to be in it anymore. I love the game. I love our meta. I love the community for it. But again, you can have a great community for a game, but if the organized play, if the people overseeing the game, supporting the game, and updating the game are not helping it, then it doesn't matter how good the community is, it's going to implode eventually.
Yep, I agree. And that is actually a discussion that I think that we're going to have in a future podcast about looking at some of the flaws for competitive LCGs. So I'm looking forward to that episode in the future, and I think it's a great discussion point to follow up. So, but I think we're going to just kind of move on through a couple of the games that we've been playing from the games of FFG. If anybody else has anything they want to add to this discussion, I think it's been a great discussion, and it's really highlighted a lot of points.
Do we want to go ahead?
I like how RJ had to put in that from FFG part. I was ready, man. I was like, oh yes, I've been doing. No.
Do we want to go ahead and say a little bit about the people who won in Worlds real quick, and then move on to some L5R and Arkham Horror?
Yeah, that sounds great. So just dealing specifically with Game of Thrones news, we have actually finished up the Blood and Gold cycle with the recent release of the Brotherhood Without Banners. And we also have the big box that dropped for House Tyrell, House of Thorns. So there's been a lot of new cards introduced to the card pool and a lot of great deck building options out there. And once we get up and running with some more games here in our meta, I'm really excited to tinker with some of these new cards and see what's come down the pipeline.
And we also had the newest chapter pack for L5R drop. And we'll have another one next week, and another one the week after, and another one the week after that. But hey, just figured I'd put that out there too.
Yep. Yeah, boy. So we have crowned world champions for a bunch of our games that we're going to go through and talk about. But with sticking with Game of Thrones for a hot second, Mad props to Reinhard Schiefkick. I immensely apologize for mispronouncing your name because that I have not seen that one. But Reinhard took down the Game of Thrones tournament with Targaryen when the agenda was Lord of the Crossing. And mad props to Eric Green with Greyjoy Reigns as the runner-up from the United States. So, well done, guys. Well done. Way to represent.
Definitely. Nice job.
I also was scrolling through and I saw that the participants in the Melee events got alternate art titles, and they have appropriate artwork for each of their positions. Like the Hand of the King is the corset version of Eddard Stark. The Crown Regent is actually Lines of Casterly Rock Cersei. Varys is Master of Whispers, Littlefinger Master of Coin, Stannis Baratheon Master of Ships, and then the Baratheon version of Renly Baratheon is the Master of Laws. So that's a pretty cool participation prize for that event. I am going to hopefully try to pick some of those up online. So yeah, they look pretty sharp. And like Caleb had also mentioned, there was another event that happened the same weekend as FFG Worlds, and that is IO Worlds. And mad props to Sandy Barnabas for taking down the Joust event, and he took it down with Targaryen fealty. So I personally enjoy seeing all of the Targaryen tech going on. Definitely as my favorite faction that I needed to take a break from, but I'm actually really happy to see them continuing to do well with not a lot of big flashy support from recent products. But also
Fire and blood!
Fire and blood. Oh yeah. And Matt also props to Will Lentz from over at the White Book for taking down third place at IO Worlds with a Tyrell Reigns deck. And I want to give a shout out to Zach Price for a 7th place finish with Tyrell Kings of Summer from the Oklahoma meta. That was well done, guys. Well done. So
very nice.
I think that wraps up a lot of the Throne stuff. I know you guys haven't played Android Netrunner, but I glanced at the world champion for Netrunner, and it is a gentleman by the name of Wolfie Horig. And I wanted to give a shout out to him because I listened to his podcast, the Winning Agenda podcast, for a long time when I was deep into Android Netrunner. So I am really happy to see Wolfie finally take down a world championship and bring lots of glory to the land done under. So well done, Wolfie.
That's fucking awesome.
Yep, good stuff. Good stuff.
And now, in L5R news, we also had Worlds there. In the end, it came down to Lion versus Crane. Obviously, I was rooting for Crane all the way. That is my clan. Unfortunately, Lion took it down, which is to be expected. As a Crane player, Lion is a tougher matchup for me. I mean, I know that I can take out Scorpion, I can take out Unicorn, I can take out Dragon, usually no problem. But Lion is definitely something to be feared. And so it did go down to the final matchup between Lion and Crane, which is kind of fitting since it is the two clans that are most opposed to each other most of the time. So Lion wins, Crane got second. And then, of course, after Worlds, they always change the roles. Since Lion was winner, they did get to choose the first role. They did choose Keeper of Fire. And Crane got second to choose, and they chose Seeker of Air, which is perfect. Very, very, very happy they chose Keeper of Air, or Seeker of Air. But there was also some pretty big stir up there. Now, so as the story goes, from what I've heard, the Hanamoto, which is generally, the top player for a clan, The Hanamoro for Lion did not play Lion, which means he lost his Hatamoto title, and he did play Scorpion. The reason why he played Scorpion was to get Hatamoto for Scorpion, because the two Hatamotos get to choose the Seeker Keeper roles. And he felt that Scorpion would be overpowered if they got to choose Keeper, because of a Keeper-only card that Scorpion is going to be getting here in the next couple packs. So he decided to give up his title and play a Scorpion deck. And he did achieve Hatamoto with Scorpion, and he was able to influence the pick. And Scorpion did end up with a Seeker role, I believe it's Seeker Void, instead of a Keeper role. Now, a lot of people are bitching and complaining because they're like, well, this is sabotage. And what do you guys think? Do you think he did it as a sabotage, or do you think he did it as a way to balance a game that he felt was going to become unbalanced? I mean, what are your thoughts even on this kind of espionage, I would say? And it's fitting, and FFG let it go because they're like, hey, this is how the clans roll, you know. There's political and military. Yeah. He chose the political route.
Well, I actually have a follow-up question to that before I give my take. You said it was Seeker Avoid?
Yes, it was Seeker.
Does that fuck them?
No, he specifically chose a Seeker that is actually really good for them. Seeker of the Void allows them to run Shameful Display and a second Void Province, which there is a good one coming up.
Okay.
So it did not screw Scorpion. Now, granted, would they have been better with the Keeper? Maybe.
Yeah. I feel like that's where you would have to go with it, is if it was truly sabotage, like if it was malicious sabotage, I feel like he would have chosen the shittiest fucking card for them. You know, because he could have chose literally the worst possible Seeker card to go for Scorpion. And the fact that he's
and granted, there's two of them who are all Hatamotos. There's two Hatamotos, and they have to agree on the card.
So two people got that status and agreed that it should be that one.
Correct.
So that to me does not feel like sabotage. That feels like them trying to balance a game that, again, FFG needs to be balancing themselves. But I'll get into that later.
I also have a follow-up question, and that's now with these Hatamotos discussing and selecting these different roles, like Lion chose Keeper of Fire and Crane chose Seeker of Air. If you play in an organized tournament as a Lion faction, you have to have that agenda? Is that correct?
You have to be that Keeper. That is correct. So if you are playing Lion in an organized play event, you have to play Keeper of Fire. And what that does is Lion, every clan is going to have a Seeker-only card and a Keeper-only card. And so, like, with Lion, they are Keeper this year. So they cannot play that Seeker-only card. Literally, that card does not exist for them. Now, other clans that are Seekers could splash it in, and that's why it's not a dead card in the pack, because it can be splashed. But it means Lion cannot use that card.
Interesting. I personally think that by design, that's a very cool way to allow the player base to influence how the game plays on a national and global meta. That's really cool, and I never fully understood that until we had that discussion and was kind of looking at that. And I don't know, that's just another thing about this game that really intrigues me and is really fascinating, that kind of wants me to give this game a second chance and see see how it pans out, because I still am very much on the fence, like I have been for the past couple months. I don't know what I'm going to do with this game, so this is very intriguing.
It is very interesting, and with the fact that the play styles change like that, and the fact that you could have this real life political, fight almost. It's so very interesting. And I know I was sitting there like for the last couple of weeks I've been begging. I'm like, please choose Seeker of Air. Please choose Seeker of Air. Because Seeker allows you to play 2 provinces of that element. So with Seeker, we can now play our special province in either the draw card or gain a fate province. Or we could play the draw card and gain a fate province, which are huge. It's just, I'm very happy. Now, Keeper's good too. Keeper allows you better splash, but I think Seeker is just a better deal for Crane. And I'm very happy to see them get that Keeper or that Seeker.
Yeah, and I actually have another question for the Saboteur. Now that he is a Hatamoto for Scorpion, is he sticking with Scorpion? Has he said anything about that? Has he come out and said, no, now I'm playing Scorpion for a good long while, or is he going back to Lion?
Have not heard. We'll have to wait for the first, big tournament, which I think is Imperial Summons tournaments. Okay. And we'll see if he plays Lion, if he goes back to Lion, or if he continues with Scorpion until next Worlds.
I also feel like that ends up being kind of relevant to it. Like if he is switching to a different clan, and it feels like it's more of it, obviously him trying to balance the game and not have Scorpion be overpowered by getting that Keeper card. But if he's like, yeah, I'm going to play Scorpion for a while because I do have this title, then I feel like it's also less sabotage, even though it kind of is to an extent, but I feel like it's less sabotage and more just fleshing out the game, like helping to skew the balance into a better place. And also, like, if somebody will drop their title as one of the best players in the game for a clan to try and help balance the game, that's huge. Like, that's not just, RJ playing Martel to fuck them over.
Yeah. Well, that mechanic doesn't really exist in any other LCG that I've played, which is why it's so intriguing. And just allowing the players to have this much influence over how the game plays out competitively over the course of, a year? Is that right, Crimson?
Yeah, it's every year.
Gotcha. Just allowing the players to have this much freedom, or have this level of freedom to do that is really, really cool. So I'm definitely going to throw props to, I guess, FFG Organized Play for that level of interaction with this game. That's really cool. I can't really say anything else. That's really cool.
Here is the Keeper card in question. It is called Backhanded Compliment. It costs 0. It is Keeper roll only for Scorpion. It is choose a player. That player draws 1 card and loses 1 honor. That card is sick as hell for Scorpion.
Sounds so good.
Actually, it's going to be splashed into Phoenix Dishonor decks because they automatically lose 1 honor. Yeah, they get a draw card, but what does it matter if it kills them?
Yeah, and that's actually the really good question of, can you use the Seeker and Keeper only cards? Are they splashable or are they clan?
They are all splashable.
Oh.
Nope, they are all splashable. In fact, that one only cost an influence of 1.
What?
So it's cheap to splash, yeah.
They
wanted to make sure that they were all cheap to splash. Yeah, they all wanted them to be cheap for splashing because they wanted the cards to be played even if the clan couldn't play that card.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, that makes sense. And I actually did not know that, so that I got to give them props on that. And everybody knows how I have felt about L5R, but I have to give them credit for that. I think that is a really, really cool way to do it. Also, like RJ was saying, I think that it's really cool that we do have that aspect of the community input and how tournaments shake out affects the game as a whole. That is something that will intrigue me to no end. And there is a chance that I may look at L5R again one of these days, and I may just borrow a deck and fuck around in some local tournaments and get a feel for it. Because it may grow on me. But I do feel like L5R is definitely where it's at for organized play right now. And I'm really glad to see that it's getting support. The prizes have been really cool. And again, how the tournaments shake out. Now, I do have a question about that tournament structure with the being forced into the Keeper of Fire or Keeper or Seeker of Air or whatever. Is that only for Premier tournaments and up, or is it for any tournament that has a tournament kit, basically?
It's supposed to be for Premier, but 99% of the time, it's usually any organized play event. So yes, anything with a kit will probably, like, I know at our all three of the local stores that have events here, if they are giving away prizes, and if they are doing deck lists, they are requiring the roll.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, I think that's really cool. I think that that's just a really neat way to do it. Because in most competitive games, you don't have that kind of interactivity with your players, and so I got to give them credit for that. Now, aside from L5R doing really well, do you know what game isn't being turned into a stress-filled dumpster fire like Netrunner and Game of Thrones? Arkham Horror, which we actually got to play some more yesterday.
I thought you were going to say Conquest.
But what's Conquest? Yeah, we actually got to play a little bit of some campaign play, actually. We did start from the very beginning. We chose some different characters. Of course, Crimson chose Roland because it's Roland, and he's great. But me and RJ got to play some new characters. I got to play Jenny Barnes from the Dunwich Legacy cycle. Who did you end up playing, RJ?
I ended up playing Ashcan. In my still, unfortunately to this day, very limited gameplay. I really haven't explored or done anything with the Survivor cards, and Ashcan seemed like a really cool character for the Survivor, and I wanted to just get a different experience. And oh man, I've had a blast with him so far.
Awesome. I've seen Ashcan being played before in a local game, and he seems really, really fun. Crimson.
I like Ashcan, and I really like the new one. I forget his name. Wes something, or I don't know, the Gravedigger. Both of those ones are amazingly good. I think the Gravedigger one is actually a little bit more solid and more straightforward than Ashcan. Ashcan really relies on Duke a lot, where the Gravedigger doesn't have that downside, but advantage also. But both of them play really smooth. They both play really great. And, I think it's a great choice to try Ashcan out.
Definitely.
I actually played the Gravedigger last time we played. But I knew we needed a tank-like character, so I'm like, okay, well, let's go with Roland. We need some damage.
Definitely. And I was actually going to ask you, because you've played Roland a good couple of times at least, and has he felt any different for you lately? Like, coming back to him, has the scenarios played out a little bit differently to where his role kind of fluctuates more, or his playstyle fluctuates more, or has he kind of just been more of the same?
No, he's He's kind of the same just because he's so streamlined in what he does. He shoots people and he finds stuff. And I mean, if I had more time, I would have played the soldier instead, the new blue character. I think he's a little bit more tanky
Mhm.
and a little bit more interesting, but he is not as good as Roland because Roland has that ability to kill things, find clues, and then search and find clues.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a downside in that aspect. His downside is he's not too bright and he doesn't know how to run away.
That sounds about right. And that is one of the nice things about Roland is that he's always good. He may be a little bit more the same, like, but as you were saying, he's very streamlined. Like, he knows what he does, and he does it good. With Jenny, I had never played a rogue character before, and I fell in love with her instantly. The novella that just came out for her, that comes with the alternate art version and a couple of other cards, was what inspired me to try her. She always looked really cool on paper, and I was like, oh, she gets 2 resources a turn, and she goes blap blap and kills everything. And yeah, that's what she did. I dropped
That's
her
exactly what you
twin
did.
45s. Yeah, I dropped her twin 45s with 13 ammo and proceeded to murder everything in our path. Holy crap.
In hindsight, maybe a little less ammo and save some of that.
I mean, I was gaining
you didn't use half of that ammo.
No, you're right, but it was fun to drop 13 ammo on a gun. But also, the nice thing about having that much ammo was that I didn't feel bad when we all drew enemies, and I'm like, cool, I'll kill that one, kill that one, kill that one. I spent 3 actions right there, and I still have, 10 ammo. And then when we get to the boss, I can just melt him by spending all of my actions on attacks. So, in hindsight, maybe like
all 4 of them.
Yeah, maybe like 8 ammo. Probably, I probably wouldn't go over 10 again. But the fact that she can do that, and we found that burglary is just overpowered as shit.
Yeah, I was just going to say burglary is what made all of that possible. And I think with that specific scenario, because you were able to milk that in the hallway. That's what it was.
Hallway. The hallway should have a dash, not a shroud value.
You're right, actually, because no clues spawn on it.
Yeah, but I think in the future, depending on which location you're at, you might get limited use out of it. But it was still really cool to see that interaction plan out. And it was so flavorful. It's like Jenny just wanders into this house and is like, oh, it's a cute little vase over there. I'm going to take that. Oh, it's a cute little cigar case over there. I'm going to take it. Oh, look, there's some ammo here. All the ammo.
And there's also maybe a rules question on that too, because burglary says gain 3 resources instead of taking a clue. So there may have to be a clue available to do it. I don't know, but we played it as more thematic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have fun and let's play the game how, because it's more of a board game than it is a card game.
Correct, definitely. And I'll check the FAQ on that and see if there is anything. But I believe that you can still investigate if there are no clues. Like, you can still initiate that action. It's just if you succeed, you cannot claim any clues if there aren't any. And since it replaces what you would get...
And burglary says instead. So who knows what the ruling is. If you can't do that action, can you do an instead action?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know every game's different, but like in L5R, if you can't fulfill the first part, you can't do the last part.
Yeah, definitely. And there is another card that kind of coincides with that burglary now, and it's called Double or Nothing. It's a skill card with a question mark. You discard it to double the difficulty, but if you succeed, you double the reward. So I can discard that, like if it's a 1 shroud, I can discard that to make it a 2, and I get +1 from that card. And if I succeed, I get 6 resources instead of 3.
That seems pretty good.
A little bit. Especially for, like, if I'm trying to play DeLuca, who costs 6, or some of those other things. The Chicago typewriter is expensive. But she's really.
But I think it fits the theme.
Yeah.
It fits the theme of
it does.
And that's why, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll clarify that and make sure, because if we were playing it wrong, I'd rather play it right. Definitely.
But at the same time, even in the how to play manual, it says that role playing is encouraged. So I'm all right with it.
So steal all the shit. But yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised with Jenny. I thought she played very well. And I mean, she was just fun. She gains a bunch of resources. She shoots a bunch of people. And she has 3s across the board, so she's just kind of streamlined. But yeah, I this was actually, I think, the most fun I've had playing Arkham Horror in a while. Just because, besides Crimson, we kind of shifted our class that we were playing and got a very different perspective on the game.
Yeah, and I think it was very fun playing 3-player. I think that's the sweet spot for this game. 4-player takes a little longer than I'd like per round, where 3-player just felt to move at a steadier pace.
I agree, because I've played several 4-player games for it, and we actually had played with one of our buddies on Tabletop Simulator with it, and it took a long time. And of course, it also comes down to teaching new players how to play it. That takes a little bit longer, but in general, that 4th person, or 5 people, or however many you can try to push the boundaries to play, it definitely creates a longer game. And I think for most games, 3 players is really solid, because you don't feel like you can read an entire book by the time it comes back to your turn.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, it was a good learning. Well, at least that 4-player game. Yeah, you were having to teach. At least Andy and I had to actually play the game, so that also probably made a huge difference. But yeah. But
yeah. I think if you have enough players that if everybody knows what they're doing, I think it goes a lot quicker. But and that's definitely no shot to anybody. I would rather teach people how to play and have a longer game than to not have anybody to play with. But
right.
Yeah, having 3 players all on the same page, knowing what's going on, it's great. And if we get a 4th person in, that's also great.
Yep, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm really liking the character that I decide to play, Ashcan. He's a lot of fun. Like Crimson was saying, he does rely pretty heavily on Duke, but he's actually pretty versatile in terms of investigating and fighting because of Duke. And naturally, the only downside is that you have to exhaust Duke to do one of those 2 actions. But Ashcan can discard a card from his hand to ready an asset, which is really cool because Duke is an asset, and you can get multiple uses out of him if you need to. So that's really cool. And then really just exploring the rest of the survivor cards and seeing what they can do. And I'm already starting to notice a really cool theme of you get effects if you lose by a certain amount. Like if you fail a check, or if you fail a skill test by less than 2, you can discover up to 2 clues at your location. That's really cool. It really has that, they took a shot at me and I didn't make it out completely intact, but I still was able to find something on my way out. Or get this other effect. And that to me is really cool game design and very flavorful mechanic for survivors. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this last, I guess it's not a clan, it's a class, that's what it is. I'm looking forward to exploring this last class a little bit more. So yeah, I'm excited.
Definitely. And that's one of the things I really love about Arkham Horror is that you get drastically different playstyles from each class, but also each character in that class, because they have different deck building requirements or options. Like with Jenny, I can use up to 5 cards of level 0 from another class, which is really, really cool because I ended up splashing Survivor cards in for her because I wanted to get Luckies and look what I found. Because she is 3s across the board, so she's not particularly great at anything, but she's pretty good. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try to investigate at a 3 against a 3. Oh, I failed by 2. Cool. I found 2 clues anyway. Or, oh, I failed by 2 or less, I'll get +2 and pass it. So, and that also felt very flavorful with how she plays, of kind of skin of her teeth, very luck-oriented character, being a rogue as well. But I feel like this is the type of game that you start a campaign with a character, you're going to really get to explore that class. But if you change characters at some point or start another campaign, you're going to have a completely different experience with it. And with these campaigns having, up to 9 or 10 scenarios per campaign, and we have 3 campaigns right now, that's a lot of content. And again, we only have the core set, 1 full cycle, and 1 cycle that just started. So it's not even that big of a buy-in. You can just buy core sets and build a deck from the 2 core sets and play with any of your friends who have the scenario cards. And I think that's huge. It feels like a pen and paper, tabletop game, a D20 type game with cards that really evolves like that. And what have you guys felt about the campaign structure? Because I know, RJ, you haven't got to really mess around with the campaign stuff before because you'd only played the 1 match on tabletop with us.
Yeah. Well, the other day I actually organized my collection, and I didn't look through all of the scenario cards, but I looked through a decent amount of them and kind of started to see the broad skeleton of how a campaign is structured with the different symbols on the cards. Like, okay, for this scenario, you use the rat symbol, the broken flask token, this other thing, and this other thing. You shuffle all those together, and that's your scenario deck. That to me is really cool, along with all of the different locations and how they each tie together, because it really is just a giant story that you're just tying it together. And with the game design, they've really built in that consequences. Like if your character is defeated, you suffer a physical trauma, and that's going to carry through the rest of the campaign. And there are different resolutions with every single scenario that can affect the broad campaign. So I really think that is a really cool game design and really innovative, and it adds a huge amount of replayability, no matter how little or how much of the product that you've bought into.
Exactly. And I love how you gain experience and then can spend experience on upgrading your deck for a campaign.
Yeah, I didn't even put that in there. And that's a huge part of it too, because I've only been looking at just starter decks. This is really the first campaign that I'm able to actually start exploring those cards that I have to spend pips on. So, yeah.
Definitely. And me and Crimson were actually messing around with upgrading our decks after we finished playing yesterday. And was it not just fun, like going through the cards and being like, oh my god, this is a pip card and it's so good.
Yep, I decided to go with the 2 amulets to give me +4 horror hit points, because that makes me a 9/9 instead of a 9/5.
Definitely. And Roland kind of needs that, especially if you start taking some mental trauma or whatever, then he starts the next scenario with less health or less sanity. And so I definitely think that was a great idea to go for the amulets, especially because the maximum number of a card that you can have is 2. So you already got the playset of those amulets in there, so you're off to the races. And I ended up going an interesting route with Jenny. I ended up taking the lockpicks, which seemed to be really overpowered. Like, I was surprised. I had to read it a couple of times, but basically it's like an upgraded flashlight for the rogues. So flashlights give you -2 shroud to the location you're investigating, so it makes it easier to find clues. Well, the lockpicks let you add your speed to your investigate check. And so with Jenny, I basically get to investigate at a 6, and it has three supply on it to be used 3 times, but it doesn't cost a supply to use. It actually says investigate adding your speed to the check, and then if you do not succeed by 2 or more, then you remove a use. So if you're succeeding by a good amount each time, those lockpicks will never go away, and you're constantly investigating at a 6. They cost 1 experience. So there's 2 of those in there now. And there's just some really cool stuff that are only pip cards, like the lockpicks. And I found one that is basically a time block from Magic. It says cost 2. It is a amulet. And it says after a phase begins, you may remove this card from the game to skip that phase. Or after a phase ends, you may remove this card from the game to restart that phase again. That just seems like a fun card to me, but it also seems like it can be really powerful, sitting there going, hey, we were able to investigate and get a bunch of these clues, but the agenda's about to advance and we're, probably all going to die. Well, let's just redo the investigator phase and get a whole nother turn. 3 whole turns. Really.
Yeah, it seems way powerful. I mean, I think it was a good choice. It really was.
Definitely. And you were actually the one that was like, you should probably do the stopwatch or the pocket watch.
Yeah. And RJ, I mean, just as a suggestion, I would really consider adding in the upgraded versions of your ally card. He's way better upgraded, and I don't think he costs a lot of pips, but it is.
Is it the football player?
He's definitely worth it.
Pete or whatever his name
solid.
is. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking at that.
Peter,
and I'm also thinking of the upgraded version of Emergency Cash, because those just seem pretty solid.
Yeah, the emergency caches are just great all around.
Yep, good stuff. Good stuff. I think over the next couple days or the next couple weeks, I think our plan is to just continue rolling through these campaigns and really putting our money where our mouths are by saying that we're going to deliver some more content. And did we recorded that one too, right?
We did.
Yes, I have not edited it or anything.
Well, we just did it last night, so that's fine.
Verified. Yeah, and verified the recording. Sometimes my editor process depends on which one I use. Sometimes it doesn't capture the whole screen, so I got to verify that it did capture correctly. And if it did, I will edit it down and get it on YouTube.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
I think it would be really cool to have our viewers just follow us through a campaign. So spoilers, it's what's going to happen is going to happen, story-wise. But you can share our journey and follow us through the craziness that is Arkham Horror.
And one little addendum to that if people do watch us, it's not necessarily going to shake out the same way that their campaign will, because each scenario has its own resolution and it's several different ones, which will affect the rest of the campaign. So even if you see us play through one and we choose or end up being forced into a certain resolution, then the whole rest of our campaign for that cycle is going to be different than somebody who got a different resolution. So minor spoilers.
And I'll be honest too, we had played this very first part of the first campaign a couple times. So we may not be as more theatrical as normal, but in the next couple ones, I will make sure that we have Caleb be way more theatrical.
Oh, I'm gonna crank the theatrics up to at least a 9. I'll try to keep it under 10 unless something crazy happens. But we will make sure to actually read all of the story text when we're flipping the agenda and the act and stuff like that. We kind of breezed through this one just because we were trying to kind of test some stuff. But since the game actually worked out really well and there was some cool stuff, we decided to go ahead and get it edited and uploaded. So, but the next few that we're going to be doing for this base campaign, we will definitely be diving more into the story part of it and letting you viewers know what's going on. That way you don't come in going, why the fuck are they in the basement? So, yeah. So everybody will be informed next time. But still, watch it, like it, share it, whatever you guys want to do. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe so that you guys can see when we upload some new stuff, and we'll have links and everything. We'll get you covered on all that later. Any other final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think it's I'm really enjoy just playing some more Arkham Horror. It's something I've been wanting to do for a couple weeks now, and I'm really happy that we're starting to do some of that between all of our backlogs of games that we got to play.
Definitely.
Oh, I'm good. Let's wrap this up, and I'll go play some.
Saw that one coming a mile away.
Some Arkham Destiny, some Destiny horror. But yeah, all right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of WTFFG. We will have a new episode out in about 2 weeks. We were a little behind with real life stuff and scheduling that we were a little late on this one, which is totally fine. This is a hobby. It's not a job. We're just here to give our experiences to the listeners, and hopefully you all enjoy it. But definitely look for our next episode in a couple weeks. Look for our YouTube videos. You can find a link to our YouTube on our Facebook page, as well as on mediocregamers.com, where you can listen to our previous episodes. And our Facebook and Twitter is at 2mediocregamers. So you can go check us out, like on there, and everything like that. And basically come hang out with us, talk with us, give us some feedback. If you guys want to play some games with us, discord.mediocregamers.com. And don't worry about not being, too involved with getting on Discord and talking to us. If you jump in one time, talk with us, play a game with us, we don't care. You're always invited. Everybody's invited to come talk and play with us. And honestly, that's about it. You can also find us on iTunes and Google Play now. So go listen. And until next time, I'm Caleb.
And I'm RJ.
And I'm Crimson.
Get out there and play some games.